Okay, if you aren't living your purpose, what might be 10 things that would get you closer to that? So I'm going to talk about these pretty briefly. All of these could be unpacked more, but I want to make sure that we're close to 7:30-ish when we wrap up and can do some Q&A. So these are listed on page 5 of the workbook. But one of them, and I would say with all of these, take which of the 10 might be useful for you as an action item and work with that. You don't have to do all 10. Not all 10 are going to apply to each of you. But I do think if you're unclear about where you want to go, you could easily make the wrong step, the wrong move. Taking some reflective time, even if you feel like I don't have it, you're going to need to take some of that to let some of these ideas germinate. Where do I want to go? What do I want to do? What's my next move? You want to have some intention behind that. And most people would say getting clear about what is essential. Greg McEwen or Richard Leiter saying, being able to take some time to be more reflective is another way to be able to do that. Manoush Zomorodi, who speaks on the TED podcast host, will say, creating some time away, some white space is what helps those ideas come forward, which is why if you're in the shower, you end up having great ideas because you're not purposely thinking about anything. So give yourself some extra shower time to help yourself figure out where you want to go next. And in doing that, you may want to do some visualization of your future self. And I'm not talking visualize woo-woo fantasy, but if you closed your eyes and did some imagining of, okay, what do I want my life to look like in 5 years? Where do I want to live? Do I want to be working with a group of people or by myself? What should my dress be like? Do I want to get up and drive to work, or do I want to be working from home? What am I doing in the course of a day or a week? Taking some of those steps to do that visualization, walk yourself through that ideal or future state you want, can be really powerful. So I put a link in the workbook around how you could do that as a visualization. So another thing to think about is, what's your risk tolerance? And, Richard said that he interviewed people who'd say they'd take more risks. And I think you need to look at, well, what's your tolerance for that? Because some people, their temperament is not high on the risk scale, and you need to honor that. I wish several times I had gone backpacking in Europe, but I was too risk adverse. I just couldn't see myself doing that. I wasn't comfortable with it, so I didn't. I have some regrets, but I did other things. I wish that I had gone out of my comfort zone in my first job, and I didn't do it as much because I was a little more risk adverse, and I need to honor that. You also may need to look at, okay, is this the time that you can be risk adverse or risk tolerant? Maybe you are the sole provider for the family at the moment. Might not be the time to make a big change. Maybe at some future point, you can make a bigger career change when risk is more acceptable. Looking at, if I'm not sure what I want to do, exploration is the place to be. And I think a lot of people skip over this step. So when I work with people one-on-one, we talk a lot about how can you do exploration. And this is not job searching. This is looking for information to feed you with knowledge to know where to go next. And some of it is knowing that you want to eliminate options. And some of it is exploring things that you want to move more forward in, because you're getting a lot of yeses to what you're exploring. Yeses internally, you're excited. Yeses, people are talking to you about things. Yes, you're seeing that there's it's a career field that's growing, things like that. But ways to do that, the easy way to summarize it is if you did some reading, and you need to be creative about what that is. That might be articles. LinkedIn just put out an article about the top 15 jobs that are going to be popular in the future. I didn't read that article saying, oh, I'm going to go do one of those jobs. I read it to know what fields are growing, because maybe I could work in that field doing training for organizations in that field. But I'm taking that information and using it. So you need to look at, how do you use the information? Maybe it's not always as straightforward as I'm reading job listings on Indeed, or I'm looking at stuff on LinkedIn. I might do informational interviewing. And if you haven't ever done that, the short version of what that is talking to people about what they're doing, because you want to know more about their job and their occupation and their organization. And so you are interviewing them in a very short way to get information, not a job, but it's again in this career exploration area, so that you can go, oh, okay, that field really isn't for me, or this kind of organization just isn't a fit. And of course, being able to network, which is very closely related to informational interviewing. So expanding the people that are in certain fields, so that when you are in a job search phase, you can tap into your network. And related to career exploration is doing things like volunteering, or work on the side, so that you are testing out, do I like what I think I want to do? And you can't do that with every option, but some jobs allow you to be able to try it out as a volunteer, or I work on the side doing that, or I'm going to prototype what I think it is I want my small business to be, and I'm going to try it out in a very small scale to get some feedback to see if I'm on the mark, to see if this is going to be a viable business before I leave my day job to go do it. So that's option 5. Typically, moving into a different job is going to require some new skills, and you need to think about, how am I going to develop those? Is it going to be the traditional way of learning new skills, where you take a class, you get a degree, you get a certificate? Could be. But it also might be that you can get skills in your organization if you can be on a cross-functional team, if you can get someone to mentor you and they bring you to things that give you exposure, give you new skills to develop. If you're able to be on a rotational project, or if you're able to, cross-train with somebody. Those are ways you can get some new skills internally that don't require as much time or commitment as I go get a degree or I go get a certificate somewhere. And as you're thinking about, I need to create time to do exploration, to informational interview, to get new skills, you really need to take some time to think about, how am I going to create this time to do this? Because you can't just cram it in along with everything else. Be intentional. If this is what I need to do in 2024, I need to create some bandwidth to be able to do this so I don't overwhelm myself. It can take time. It can be stressful. So you want to make sure that you think, what am I going to stop doing for now so that I can make time to do this? And this being probably exploration, research, networking, skill development. And, many of you may have already been doing this, but if you're going to be making a move in your career, you are probably yoked or tied to other people, a family, a partner, somebody if you're going to change, it's going to impact them. So having a discussion or discussions to get them to be on board with you and to hopefully be able to create some time for you to be able to do what you need to do through having these discussions. Hey, we need to talk about, I need to look for a different kind of work, and I'm going to need to carve out some time each week to do some of this. So can one of you take on this particular chore so that I can make some of that time right now? That kind of conversation, it may sound like common sense, but maybe you need to be explicit about having that and bringing those folks in to be a partner with you instead of them feeling like they're just subjected to your changes. If you are not able within your current circumstances to do a lot of big planning, I'm going to suggest two things. Number 9, which is, can you look for one thing each week that you could do that really motivates you so that you can have a joy in each week, at least a little bit? So if life isn't great, how can you just make space for one little thing that, might be helpful, and do that? And then the other thing is looking at, how can you make some small changes within your current work as opposed to having to change your job? How can you make things possible?